right.
These hammocks have been in our backyard for about 5 years. One of the straps was messed up, and I thought since I was going to take it apart and fix it, it might be fun to film. My kids love swinging on them or just laying in them. On a Saturday afternoon in the summer, often I'll take a nap in them. It's wonderful to have, and it's even more convenient to keep them in the backyard. They're always handy whenever you want to lay in them. This can be galvanized or stainless steel cable. Buy a cable clamp big enough for the cable size you buy. I recommend 3/16 or larger. Any old piece of junk garden hose will work just fine. If you don't own a pair of vice grips, you can also use a regular vise. I find it easier to build them on the spot than running back and forth testing. Always wrap the ends of the steel cable in electrical tape. The ends of the steel cable tends to fray, and the little wire strands will poke you pretty bad in the finger. Have to protect those little hands. No matter how tight you make them on a bench, once you put a load on them, they'll be a little loose. So once you have someone laying in the hammock, just come around again and make sure they're really, really tight. You don't need anyone slipping and getting hurt. These clamps work on friction. It's critical that you get the right end against the cast clamp portion. I didn't show any video here because I thought this was pretty easy to understand. I'm doing a test fit here to establish the final length I want the last loop size to be. The formula I'll give you at the end will get you pretty close, and then you can kind of tweak it from here. You can always loosen the clamp and change the length. It's no big deal. You just don't want the cable to be too short. The purpose of adding the second piece of tape is so that you're only fighting the orientation. Otherwise you're fighting the orientation, like rotation wise, and you're fighting the loop size. This takes one of the two variables out of the equation. Makes it a little bit easier to put together. You can see how I'm going back and forth, sequentially tightening each side until I get it extremely tight on both nuts. I would note that over time the length will stretch a little bit, so once the hammock is too close to the ground or too much sag in it, you can just loosen a U-bolt, take a little slack out and tighten it again. This makes it infinitely adjustable. This is my kids' favorite game with these hammocks. They love it when I swing them really hard back and forth and then tickle them from underneath. They just get a real kick out of it. After pondering all winter a couple years ago, trying to come up with an inexpensive, watertight container to put in the backyard, I came up with a $12 mailbox. They're cheap, easy to find, easy to mount, and they stay bone dry no matter what's going on in the outside environment. So for those of you that are interested in how to calculate the length of the cable, here you go. Here's your two trees, tree 1 and tree 2. Now keep in mind that the trees could be different sizes, and don't forget that they grow. So the cable length has to get longer because of the diameter gets bigger. So here's how you do it. First, you measure the distance between tree 1 and tree 2, which I've just marked as D. Then we measure the length of the hammock. Just lay it on the ground and measure it from clip to clip. So with that in mind, the formula is pretty simple. You take the distance between the trees minus the length of the hammock and you divide by 2. The reason you divide by 2 is that we know this distance plus this distance. That's what's left. So if you divide by 2, that gives you that distance. Okay. So then we add 16 inches. Why? Right here. The cable has to double back through the clamp. So assume about an 8-inch length here. And you have a loop on each end of the cable. So you need 16 inches, 8 plus 8. Get the idea. The last thing I always do on any material project is I always multiply by 1.1, which just gives you an extra 10%. Because we're human and we make mistakes. So now that we know the length of this for your application, all we need to do is add on for the circumference of the tree. And to do that, you just wrap a tape measure around it and that'll give you a pretty close number. So strap 1 is the circumference plus the length you calculate over here. And strap 2 is the circumference of tree 2 plus the same length. That should give you a good approximate length to go to the hardware store and buy. The cable is sold in bulk, so you just tell them how long you want a piece and they cut it for you. Hopefully this helps you guys. Have a nice day, and thanks for watching.